Hello and welcome back to the podcast. This is episode 72. And in this episode, I am going to talk a little less about your business and what you should be doing to grow your business and give you a little bit of a behind the scenes of my business or our business. And particularly in this episode, I am going to focus on 4 of the most important learnings or reflections that I've had on our highest revenue month, which was January. This month just passed. If you're listening to this a little later down the track in 2024, our highest revenue month was January, and it's been amazing. We have stopped to celebrate, which is something that my team and I don't often do, and yet I encourage my clients to do that all the time. And actually, the first lesson that I'll dive straight into is what prompted us to celebrate and actually take a moment to reflect on how and why this has been our highest revenue month. And before I do jump into these tips, one of the reasons that I often hesitate to share too much of, what I'm actually doing in my business right now is that I've been building my coaching business for coming up to 7-8 years. It's a bit of a vague number because I built and sold Well-to-Do as my focused business, my priority business, and coaching was always something that I naturally did on the side. It was like a side hustle to my business, and then it sort of transitioned into becoming the main business over the years. So there's no definite date on when I launched my coaching business, but it's certainly been something I've been doing for the last 8 years. So I've been doing this for 8 years, and the strategies that I'm using now 8 years in are not going to be the strategies that I teach to you. So they're not going to be important for you in your business right now if you are just starting out as a wellness expert. There will be a lot of strategic thinking that is extracted from the way that I do things in my business that I will want to teach you and that I do teach you. But one of the mistakes that I see a lot of business coaches actually making is trying to help their clients bypass some of those foundational elements of building a business that are difficult and clunky and sometimes uncomfortable, with the best intentions to stop them from having to go through that. And more recently, what I've realized is that there's necessity in going through those foundational pieces beyond just, learning them and mastering them. And, we don't always want to avoid those mistakes, because the reason that I am where I am is because of those mistakes and because of the learnings that happen when you have an inefficient business model or when you are working with clients who are actually not your ideal client. And so more and more now, with experts in the wellness industry, practitioners that I work with, I actually encourage them to go through some of those phases of building a business that a lot of business coaches will encourage you to completely bypass. As an example, selling some one-off sessions if you've never sold expertise before, or, pricing yourself lower than you think the market could command in terms of value for your service, in order to actually just get good at selling and not feel like the price is the thing that's getting in the way of you being confident and showing up and so on. So coming back to my point, I don't always talk about what I'm doing in my business because firstly, it can often act as a distraction for my clients. And the second reason is because it can often be misleading. It can often be perceived as, easy to execute or simple or efficient. And there's so much that goes behind the scenes that is only possible because of ultimately the time and longevity of being in this business. So despite all of that, today in this episode, I'd like to share with you 4 of the lessons and learnings that have come from our highest revenue month in January. And these are not so much strategic. So I'm not going to talk to you about the funnel that we've built or the way in which we sold our offers this month or what those offers even were. Instead, I want to use this episode to reflect on those bigger picture learnings, those bigger picture reflections that have come off the back of what we've achieved this month. So coming back to number one, the reason that we have celebrated, the reason that I'm able to share these learnings with you is because late last year in December, or was it December? It may have been a little earlier. Maybe it was October. It actually feels like it's been a really short amount of time, but probably about October. I made a decision to invest in some mentorship and coaching. So Hannah and my husband and I made a collective decision that it was time for us to invest in some external mentorship and coaching, which, is something that I've always valued. I've had a lot of different coaches over the years. I've invested tens, potentially even, beyond six figures in coaching and mentorship. So I know the value of it. And of course, one of my philosophies is that if you have an expectation that your clients are going to invest in themselves with you, that you should also be setting that standard for yourself and mirroring that energy that you desire your clients to be in, which is, that you're also investing in yourself in whatever capacity. In this instance, we're talking about, business coaching. So asking yourself where you're stuck and where it would be valuable for you to get support in the same way that you're asking your clients. So we made the decision, and it was after a lot of deliberation, and there's a learning in that in itself. I had been following and tracking James, our mentor, for years. And I'm not, overstating that. It had literally been years of knowing who he is, knowing the work that he does. He'd been through various iterations of the way in which he was or wasn't working with clients. He started to communicate an opportunity to work with him. And actually, it was months of getting emails from him about this particular program or community that he was launching. And lots and lots of hearing the benefits, being drawn to it, that I finally, followed my intuition, proposed it to Hannah to see, how she felt about being in this community. And we made the decision together to dive in. The lesson in that in itself is sometimes it's a long, nurturing process. And I was a perfect example. And this reminds me in my own business how long it can sometimes take for us to make decisions. I was a prime example of that with investing in this particular mentorship. And, it reminded me of the importance of mentorship in so many different ways. And that's really where the second lesson draws from, which I'll come to in a moment. But just making that decision to be in the space of somebody who I admire and respect has been an absolute game changer. But I want to just share with you one important element of the decision-making process that I used to decide that this was the right mentor for me. I see a little bit of a pattern in the mentorship and coaching space of clients deciding to work with a particular coach because fundamentally, and whether consciously or unconsciously, there is a desire to be like them. And it's this, a good friend of mine, Amy, talks about this idea of putting a mentor or a coach up on a pedestal and seeing them as somebody iconic, seeing them somebody worthy of being. And it's an easy pattern to fall into with mentorship. Instead of learning and extracting value from an individual that allows you to get better at making better, intuitive and aligned decisions for yourself, you end up falling into a pattern of just trying to replicate everything about them because they are successful and because you desire to be successful as well. And I've been guilty of this in the past. I've been guilty of replicating instead of extracting the high-level thinking from a mentor and then applying it to the type of business that I want to be building. And here's another little segue point on this. Another reason that I often don't share my business strategies that I'm employing and what's happening behind the scenes in my business is because I'm a business coach. So I have a very different set of services, set of teachings than what you have in your business as a wellness expert. And I never want to lose sight of that because strategies that will work for business coaches like myself will not always translate for my ideal client, which is you guys. The way in which I sell my service, which is business coaching and strategy, will not always be aligned with the way in which you need to sell your service as a health practitioner or a wellness expert. So the skills that I've developed over the years are in being able to look at a wellness expert's business, a health practitioner's business, and determine what it is that you need in your business in order for you to grow and scale. And it will often be completely different to what I need in my business in order to grow and scale. So I have gotten better and better at taking from a mentor or a coach skills, learnings, ways of thinking that will help me to translate into strategies and thinking and learnings and teachings that will be helpful for you to learn as a wellness expert and a coach. And so if I'm talking all the time about how I'm building my business as a business coach, that's not going to be super relevant for you. What is going to be relevant to you more so than anything else is what my other clients who are getting that growth and traction and momentum are doing in their business that you are best placed to replicate or to learn from. So that's another little caveat as to, why I don't tend to share these learnings. But what I'm going to try and do as I go through these is actually translate them into meaningful insights for you as a wellness expert or practitioner. I have just been reminded recently of the importance of investing in coaching because it up-levels you, because it helps you to see your blind spots. But most importantly, I decided to do it because it was time for us to learn some new strategies, get some new insights that fundamentally we were blind, we were stuck on. We were stuck. And, that was the first admission for me. I'm stuck. I need to learn from somebody. And then it was about finding someone who I didn't have on a pedestal. I didn't want to be or be necessarily like, albeit in some ways, certainly in terms of freedom and success. I aspire to be that example that my coach has set. But more so, I chose to work with James because of his incredible insight into what makes a business successful, because of his ability to simplify complex thinking into very easy to understand and apply principles, because ultimately he is building a business that is founded upon principles of simplicity and not complexity. And there was one thing that I had noticed about our own business, which was it was starting to feel quite complex. And in order to scale it, it was becoming more complex. And so I sought him out because ultimately of his philosophy around building a business that is very simple, very lean, which means not having a lot of team members, and ultimately very easy to scale in a lean fashion. So it was more of his philosophies that I felt aligned with that made me actually want to learn from him. And that has been a critical piece of why our revenue in our business is suddenly skyrocketed, because I found the right person to help me and I have chosen to work with him for the right reasons. And they're very different reasons to reasons that I've chosen to work with mentors in the past. So the second reflection that I have on our highest revenue month to date actually stems from the work that I have done with our coach, our mentor, James. And that is that for many years, I have been working on my mindset, cultivating this belief in what is possible for me. And whilst it has served me, one thing that was, spotlighted for me that perhaps I'd been missing or hadn't been focusing enough attention and energy on was another piece to the puzzle that is actually far more important and exceeds the value of having belief. And I'll come back to that in a moment. And this second requirement or characteristic of a successful entrepreneur is commitment. Commitment to the right inputs into your business and repeating those inputs over and over and over again, even when they don't feel like they're working, even when they don't feel like they're producing the results, day after day, week after week, month after month. And what I've learned is that commitment actually trumps belief every single time. And what I mean by this is that you don't necessarily need to believe that success is possible for you. It helps. It helps because ultimately it becomes that driving force. If you believe that it's possible for you, then you keep moving forward. But if you can focus more of your energy in creating those patterns or habits of consistent inputs, an example of an input would be posting on social media every single day, regardless of whether it's Tuesday, Saturday, Sunday, holiday, not a holiday, etc. And I'm not saying that's the key to success. I'm just saying that's an example of an input that you decide to commit to day in and day out, month after month, year after year, regardless of the results that are showing. And obviously you want to be getting results, and the results will come. And that's the funny thing about these committed actions, these committed inputs, is that at first they don't feel like they're working, and then your belief wavers and you think you need to come back to working on belief. And actually you just need to keep committing, keep showing up. Even if you're showing up and getting it wrong, you're still showing up. And in showing up and getting it wrong, you are more likely to learn what it is that you need to change and tweak in order to get those outcomes. And in my experience, and this has, been a dramatic shift for me in the last couple of months, in my experience, focusing too much on trying to ensure that you have that bulletproof belief can actually just end up being a form of procrastination. It's like, I just need to keep working on my money mindset or my belief in what's possible. And actually, for most early stage entrepreneurs, for most wellness experts who are not yet getting consistent clients, it's actually more about the committed action of implementing clear marketing strategies, of working on clarifying the offers that you sell, of developing systems that mean that you're working more efficiently and not wasting time, far above and beyond sitting and reflecting on whether you believe that all of this is possible for you. Like I said, belief is helpful, but it's not critical. It's not essential. What is essential is committed action. And that's been so important for me, because in January, what I did is I stopped thinking about the possibilities for the year ahead. I stopped focusing on all the things that I want to create and haven't created yet. And I just decided that every single day I was going to show up and share high value content, make an offer to my audience. And there's a whole podcast episode about that, which also, were key learnings that I've made working with this mentor, making offers every day and being consistent with the model that we're building, deciding that this is how we're going to build things and committing to it for the long term. And that has changed our revenue trajectory far and above and beyond the belief element. And one thing that my mentor said to me the other day is that, belief can be borrowed. And this is where 1 and 2 link together. 1 was about, investing in coaching and the value of coaching and mentorship. And the second is the necessity of commitment over belief. Now, in having a coach and a mentor, you can actually, in his words, you can actually borrow belief. And that's something that Hannah and I have done. And it's the reason why you see this all the time, and I see this with clients. I had a client the other day who, in her first month of joining us inside our consistent clients community, she had an $11,000 month. And it wasn't necessarily because of the strategies that she'd implemented yet that we taught her, because she'd only just started. She was in a different level of belief, not her own belief, but belief that was being extracted from just being in a community of ambitious experts succeeding. Just being in that energy showed her what was possible, not because of her own belief, but because of the belief around her, because of our belief in her, because we were telling her, this is possible for you. Consistent income, consistent clients is possible for you. So it's an option to just borrow that belief. And you borrow that belief by putting yourself in spaces where people around you believe in you. And if you're currently in a space, in an environment, either because of family or friends, where the belief around you isn't there, it might be cause to reflect on the level of importance of you actually proactively putting yourself in those spaces. And lots of wellness experts, health practitioners come to me and tell me that their family or friends don't believe it's possible for them to be successful. And that's the most important catalyst for you seeking out paid mentorship and coaching environments in which that belief is available to you to extract, to build upon, and ultimately to get you into momentum, to get you into committed action so that your own belief becomes more available. And that belief obviously comes stronger and stronger, become stronger and stronger as you get results. So let's keep moving through the last couple of lessons. The third lesson for me has been that complexity, or building a complex business, is actually easier than building a simple business. And this has been a game changer because in January, Hannah and I simplified everything. We sat down together, we sat with Jamie, the three of us, and we talked about how we could simplify things in our business. We have this guiding light now of like, what would James do, our mentor, when we're becoming complex in the way that we're handling issues or scenarios or automations in our business. We're always coming back now to, how can I simplify this journey? How can I simplify this process for our customers? And how can we simplify it for ourselves? Because complexity is what typically happens when you are in reactive mode, you're layering things into your business and you're not zooming out and looking at, what the actual big picture is here, what the actual business model is that you have. Asking yourself, why am I selling multiple different things when I could be simplifying this into one single offer? Why are we making it complex by offering different things to different people who, tell us they're needing different things when actually we could streamline that message and be very clear on the one thing that we do? Why have multiple different funnels that are working in diluted levels when we could have one focused funnel that we're giving all of our time and attention to? And these are just examples of what I mean by simplification. We are simplifying things this year in our business. And one of those things for us was simplifying the way in which clients actually get started with us. So we've moved to a weekly pricing model. And the reason that we've moved to this weekly pricing model is because it enables our ideal client to get started for the lowest possible price. And we know that that's the hardest part. We know that getting started is the hardest part. So for you guys, wellness experts, health practitioners listening to this, we realized that we were making things complex by asking you to commit to long programs, long length containers. And instead, what we've said is, if we were to make this really simple, what would be the easiest way for somebody to get started? And it would be to make payment this week, get started, get stuck in, start learning our strategies, start implementing, come into our community, love what we do, and then we build that commitment from there. So just an example of how we've simplified everything this month and why that gave us the highest volume of new clients this month that we've ever experienced, because we simplified things for ourselves. And therefore, there's been this ripple effect of making it simpler for our clients as well. Simpler leads to more freedom. It leads to more clarity of mind. It leads to white space in your calendar to be able to, for Hannah and I, go to the gym, be more creative, create more content, do the things that we love, support our active clients. And it has been liberating. It's been freeing. But the important reflection and lesson to me is that sometimes, more often than not, complexity is actually more difficult than creating things in a simple way. And it all ties back into why, we sought out mentorship and coaching to simplify things so that every time we sit down in our business, we know exactly what we need to do next. And that's what we do for our clients as well. The fourth one, and I'll go through this quite quickly. The fourth learning is that automation is great. I love automation. I love automated email sequences. I love automated client onboarding. I love automated marketing funnels. I love automation. It's designed to make things simpler, for sure. But one thing that Hannah and I had realized on reflection is that in some ways we'd actually over-automated our business. And in some ways it was causing us to lose connection with our audience. So inside our communities, Consistent Clients and Elite Expert, we work with wellness experts to install automation in lots of aspects of their businesses. And if you're a client and you're listening to this, you'll know we do teach how to use automation, and automation has a place. But if you're yet to get consistency in selling, in attracting the number or volume of clients that you desire, and you've automated a lot of things in your business, it might be time to pause those automations and reflect on whether they're actually working. And if they're not working, because they're not helping you to get to your goal, why aren't they working? And the key to any successful business is connecting with your ideal client and finding out what they want from you. And the best way to do that is to have conversations. In fact, I say this all the time, but conversion or sales actually happens in conversations. And you can automate those to a degree, but you've got to know what type of conversations actually work first in order to then automate those effectively. And sometimes what happens is we automate first and then we try and figure out why it isn't working. Instead of having, really good quality conversations with our ideal client, making sure those conversations are turning into scenarios where clients are signing up and paying for your service, and then saying to yourself, okay, cool, this works now. Now, how do I automate it? So remember that automation is great, but so is a healthy dose of manual connection. Examples of this might be, if you have a lead magnet set up in your business and you have ideal clients or prospects coming into your business, watching a free training or downloading a free thing, and then you're sending them an automated sequence and that's not converting them into paying clients, it might be time to just pause and reflect and actually grab 10 of those leads from your email database and reach out to them one-to-one. Reach out to them directly from your inbox, as opposed to from your automated email system, and actually connect with them and say, hey, I noticed that you haven't booked a call with me. I noticed that you haven't bought my program. I'd love to check in. Like, what is it? Is it a time thing? Is it something else? Is there another reason that you haven't yet taken the next step? And people feel that connection. They feel that that's not an automated email. They can see that it's not an automated email. It says, Dear Alice or Hi Laura. And it's from you and it shows that you care, but it also gives you the most incredible insight. And Hannah and I spent a couple of months kind of de-automating a few things to just check in, to get more connected, to get those conversations flowing again in a way that they really hadn't been. And we learned a lot from you in the process. And we learned a lot that enabled us to get better at our overall communication strategy, to get better at creating content that truly connects with you and your needs. And in doing so, we have managed, as a result, to create a sales engine, a marketing engine that has worked at a whole new level and resulted ultimately in our highest revenue month to date. So I hope that those 4 lessons have been useful for you. I hope that you can extract from them the thinking that you can apply to your business moving forward. The thinking that coaching, mentorship is key, but not because you want to be that person, because they have thinking that can help you shape your thinking for the future to create a more scalable business. That, belief is important, it's great, but what trumps that every time is commitment. That complexity is easier than simplicity, and that we should be striving to simplify our businesses in every single way possible to create that freedom that we desire. And finally, that automation is great, but connection is better. And so if automation is installed in your business, but it's not getting you the results that you want, then it's time to pull back, zoom out, and create more opportunities to have conversations with your ideal client to find out what they want, how you can support them better, and therefore what's going to create that deeper connection and understanding that builds trust. And trust is ultimately what leads to somebody feeling comfortable enough to buy from you. I hope this has been helpful. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I look forward to catching you in the next episode.